Today you're going to be painting. These 10 color schemes will need to be included somewhere in your painting and most likely repeated as well. So to begin for today, you're going to take that drawing that you did yesterday in your sketchbook and you're going to label someplace inside of those drawings where you want those 10 color schemes to go. When you have finished planning out where those 10 color schemes are going to go, you're going to lay out that drawing again on your 11 by 14 poster board. Now don't relabel on your poster board. You're going to use what you drew in your sketchbook as a reference. And as you're redrawing this, please consider your time. If you've put a whole bunch of small objects in there and repeated them, keep in mind that you're going to have to paint those things. Maybe you take that object and you turn it into a much larger object as you do that. And then you put it on to your poster board so that you are planning enough time to actually finish this painting. As you begin painting, I'm going to be working off of just a paper plate here. You can mix this in two ways. You can pre-mix your colors on your palette or whatever you're using, or as long as the paint is still wet, you can do some of this mixing on your canvas or on your poster board. So the first part that I'm painting here is the section that was the two diagonal lines that went off the left and right side of my paper. And I've decided that I wanted to paint this in an analogous color scheme. So for my analogous color scheme, instead of having it be all these individual colors, I'm going to have it gradually change as it goes across my entire paper here. And so I'll be mixing these colors as I go. And as long as my paint remains wet, I can keep painting and mixing and changing it on my poster board. Now on this part, I'm going to be painting with some primary colors. And what I want to encourage you to do as you had looked at your stuff is that there are certain places that are going to lean themselves towards working with three colors that might not blend together to make the prettiest of colors. So when I ask you to draw three triangles that were close together, or three circles of a different size, or a rectangle within a rectangle within a rectangle, those kind of places are a great place to paint things like your primary color scheme, or your secondary color scheme, or the other triadic color scheme. All right, now what I also want you to notice on here is that even though on this one I'm going to be painting the primary colors, I'm also blending in just a little bit of black to create a shade of that where the tips of those triangles meet. So these don't have to be just plain pure colors. It makes it more interesting if you do a combination of some mixing and working with tints. So any pure color like this one where I want to keep it and I want it to remain blue, if I want to add some mixing in it, I can work with the tints or the shades. In this case, I chose to use the shades. Now the other thing I want you to think about is when I did that analogous color scheme there that's kind of a stripe, it also works as warm colors, but I can't use it as both. All right, I have to have one single place that I can name as my analogous colors and a separate single place that I could name as my warm colors. So even though I could technically say this is both, I'm not going to use it as both. I will have to be able to label each one of these separately. Same is true of the primary colors that I'm about to paint here. My primary color scheme is a triadic color scheme also, but I cannot use it as both. Primary color scheme is going to look more obvious as primary colors because it's more specific. Same with the secondary color scheme. And a secondary color scheme would also be considered triadic. So somewhere else on here, I have to have what would be considered a truly triadic color scheme, and that would be using the intermediate or tertiary colors. Now, lastly, what I would like to point out here is don't forget to paint your background. Now, in my plan, I have decided that I am going to paint my background using an achromatic color scheme. This just gives me some extra contrast, and that's my plan, but it doesn't have to be yours. You can use any color scheme that you want in your background. My reasoning for doing the achromatic is that the achromatic color scheme has no actual color in it. It is simply using black and white. So all of my other shapes are being painted with colors from the color wheel, but my background's going to be black and white. But again, you can do this however you choose. There's really not a right or wrong. And as you go through and you are painting, once you get those 10 color schemes painted on there, you need to remember to think about balance as far as color goes. Your darker colors are going to feel much heavier than your lighter colors. And since you will need to repeat some of these color schemes in order to fill up the space, be sure to think about that balance as far as color goes. So when I go to grade your painting, the two main concepts that I'm going to be looking for in your finished painting will be, did you achieve asymmetrical balance? Does your painting look balanced on both sides? And you should have been able to accomplish that both with the objects that you drew and with the colors that you used. The second big thing that I will be looking for will be your mixing of colors. Did you understand the color schemes? Were you able to mix those colors correctly according to our mixing practice that we did? And I always look for your craftsmanship and your creativity and your attention to detail and your time spent on that. But the two main concepts will be balance and color theory. The rest you will do on your own. Now go and paint.